one of the biggest things about training dogs or really any career is when you do it as a professional, you first do it because you are fascinated by the process, something about it that you really like, that really calls to you, that really appeals to you. You get involved in it, you learn a bunch of stuff, and that learning process just fills you with excitement because the more you learn, the more enthusiastic you get about the process, the better you get at it. And it just becomes this spiral of excitement, wonder, and just bliss. You just love it. And each dog you work with, it gets better and better and better. But then at some point, it starts to lose its starts to lose the shine. It it loses that excitement factor that it had in the beginning. And suddenly you're not as excited. You're still excited, still probably pretty happy, but maybe you're not as excited as you were in the beginning. And then before you know it, you just are kind of going through the motions. And then you decide it's kind of more like a hobby, and then you either stick with it long term or you just turn it into a hobby, or you just move on, you decide to do something else, or you feel trapped. It's about this that I want to talk about a little bit today. I know from personal experience, I've gone through all of those phases where in the beginning, I'm like, wow, I'm learning so much and I'm learning so much and I'm just learning so much. And the more I learned, the more excited I became, the more enthusiastic I got about the process. And then it became, and it lasted like that for a long time. When I do something, I get pretty obsessed with it. I did the same thing with art. If you listen to one of my episodes from, some time ago, maybe a couple of months ago, as of the recording of this, maybe a month, maybe 2 months ago, I talked about how I went from art major to training dogs. But I kind of do that. I know this about myself. When I get into something, I go in like full throttle. I I really get into it. So I was doing that with dog training. I really got into it. I was just learning and learning and learning. And I got better. And of course, the better you get at it, the more excited I was getting also. And then at some point, it lost its shine a little bit. And I had to motivate myself again. So I remember very clearly just getting tired because early in my career, I did a lot of work. I mean, I trained dogs all the time. It was my work. It was something I just, and I was hustling. I was doing a lot. I was working a lot of dogs when I worked for this company. I was fortunate that I got to work with so many dogs, primarily the working dogs. And so that really helped me out, but also gave me a little bit of that burnout feel. And I remember I had to motivate myself. And then I thought to myself, I'm going to tell you about this process for me because maybe you'll relate to it. Then it just felt like a job. It was just like, okay, this is now something I have to do. And the excitement is not there quite as much. And this is where a lot of people in various careers have that shiny, new shiny object syndrome, where they just go, oh, that other hobby looks really good. I'm going to get really into that. And for me, I definitely considered it. I definitely thought about it. I definitely contemplated going, do I really want to do this long term? And what worked for me, and I wrote a section of this in one of my books, info every dog trainer should know. So if you look that up on Amazon, I also have the audiobook on YouTube, and a lot of episodes and a lot of videos that I've made on that book, on various chapters of that book. So you can look it up on the YouTube channel, Doctoring is My Passion, or you can go through the podcast episode and you'll find some of those. But anyways, I talked about that topic of burnout. And so what I did is I had to make it my responsibility. So I switched the passion. When the passion was starting to fade, I switched it into my responsibility. Now, this is something that I do because it is my responsibility, not something I have to do. That's a little bit different, I think. Like, I have to do certain things, right? I have to, maybe I have to do some things that I really don't want to do. Whereas responsibility, it's more of a sense of duty. More of like, yes, you have to do that, is responsibility, but at the same time, it's like the vision is different. In the beginning, the honeymoon period, you're just excited, you're just going off of dopamine, and you're just flying high. You're spiraling upwards because you realize all this stuff you're learning, but then at some point that goes away. This is when, to me, I switched the passion to a sense of duty. It just became something that I felt like I had so much to contribute. Because here's the problem, and I know dog trainers have gone through this process, and typically what happens is they gain so much knowledge, they become amazing at what they do, and right when they reach the peak of their performance on their knowledge, that's when they decide to leave. That's when they decide to slow down. That's when they decide to kind of retire, to do something else. Well, it almost becomes a little bit of, I don't want to say a waste because I don't want to sound disrespectful to their choice, but it becomes, it turns into this potential that is just not going to go anywhere anymore. Right? So you got to a point where you gained those decades of experience where you've learned so much, and you could be of so much assistance to new people. You could be of so much help to other people that could use your knowledge. There's something that you know that a lot of people don't know. And because you're an introvert, or because you decided this doesn't tickle my fancy anymore, now you go away, and it's like wasted potential. Now, what do? You're just going to go do something else, which I completely respect. You make your own choices. I completely get that. But that's normally the trajectory for a lot of dog trainers. Or they just slow down and just go on a maintenance mode. Like, okay, I'm just going to train like a couple of dogs. I'm not going to do much. I'm just going to do this, and this. And they fade away. They fade into oblivion, right? Nobody knows about you. Nobody talks about, which that doesn't matter, right? People don't have to talk about you. But again, all of that knowledge that you have suddenly just not there because you decided to slow down, bring it down to a slower speed, and now you're just working until you die, or you just keep it nice and low until you go do something else in your life. And so that, to me, is what I thought. I don't want to do that. I could do something else. I could move on. But I had that conversation with myself where I thought, if I do that and I go somewhere else and I do something else, will I not go through the same stages? Very likely I am. And so what I have, this is where I had this conversation with myself, and I have it periodically, I still do, where I think to myself, well, I have so much knowledge. Now, granted, I'm not like the ultimate, most experienced dog person out there. I'd like to think that I'm pretty damn good. I have a pretty good self-image about that. So I'm not going to be like, oh, I don't know anything. I'm not going to be overly humble about it. I think people should not do that. I think it's a huge disservice to your brand, to you, to be overly humble. And I made an episode on that as well. The episode is called "The Goat of Dog Training," where I talk about how I feel about that. You can go into that episode. It's on YouTube as well if you wanted to. But anyway, so I thought to myself, I know a lot. So if I just leave, it'd be almost irresponsible. And I had to have that conversation with myself. And I thought, yeah, granted, maybe, and there's always a possibility. I always have that in my head. But, maybe I'm not going to change the world. Maybe I'm not in dog training. I say maybe because I'd like to always leave that possibility. Again, going back to, no, I'm not going to be overly humble. But going back to what I was saying, maybe I'm not going to change the world in dog training, and maybe I'm not going to change the dog industry for the better. But if I can at least help a large group of people, whether directly or indirectly, and by doing that, I can actually have a positive influence in the pet industry, in the dog world. And I can have that influence by influencing a group of people, whether that be my clients, other dog trainers that I'm coaching. If I can have that influence, then I don't want to walk away, because to me, then I'm leaving that potential and I'm just wasting it. So then that's when I turn it into, this is my responsibility. It's my duty to leave this industry better than I found it. And you got people that are out there that actually do that. And you got people that don't. I know some names. I'm not going to say some names. But if I were to tell you some of the trainers that I respect, that have a lot of experience, that have a lot of have contributed a lot in the dog training industry, but they've gotten to a point where they're slowing down, they're switching gears, they're doing other stuff, and they're slowly turning dog training into just this little weekend hobby, where these people were incredibly influential at some point, but then they're just kind of slowly fading away, and now they're almost just barely there. And you can tell they almost feel a little bit trapped, but they have made such a big print on the industry that them just leaving would just be weird. So they just switch gears, slow down, and just kind of slowly started walking towards the exit sign. And I think to myself, good for them, right? That they can it's their agency. They can do what they want. But I think to myself, man, look at all of the potential that you have. If you were just a little bit more extroverted, if you were just a little bit more outspoken, you could have such a big influence for the better. And then you got people, and some of these I will name, right? You got people that you could tell they've clearly, and I watched this, they've turned their passion into a responsibility, into duty. You can tell, like they do their schools, like to them it's a mission now. Like they're very focused. It's like mission oriented. We're like, oh yeah, this is something I was really good at. I was amazing at. Had a blast. It was amazing. But then at some point in their career, they just turn it into, this is my responsibility. And I believe that view keeps them going, but also it helps the industry, because now they're not just doing it as, oh, I'm just going to start a school just to start a school. Like they're like so focused and mission oriented about it that you can see their students just become almost religious about it. And the one person I'm going to name about this, I don't agree with everything Ivan Balabanov says, but I do know he's an amazing trainer. Obviously, everybody knows that. I've consumed some of his content. I've purchased some of his training videos from his book to his Training Without Conflict, something he made a long time. I think it was back in the 90s. He made this video with Canine Training Systems. Training Without Conflict is like the first series of how-to videos that he made, and even some of his newer content that I've consumed as well. And so you can tell he's very mission-oriented, and good for him. And yes, he does rub things the wrong way sometimes. I mean, he can be a little bit polarizing about certain topics in dog training. But that aside, you can tell this guy is like this is my mission now. I'm leaving a mark. I can't just walk away from this. And it's impressive to see that. It's great to see that. But I also know some dog trainers, and these I'm not going to name. You can tell they switch gears. And they could have an equally big influence, I believe. You can tell they just kind of switch gears. They're like, and I've talked to them, and they told me, yeah, I'm just kind of having fun with it. But looking from an outside perspective, you look at them and you're like, dude, you have no idea how much you know and how much the information that you have. And a lot of these guys think, well, it's just dog training, but it's not just dog training. It's the way you say it, the way you deliver the message. That's what makes it special. That's what makes it unique. And so these are the different stages. Now, some people don't do that. Some people just leave. They're like, no, I'm done with this. And some people feel trapped. So when the people that feel trapped, these are the people that are clearly not enjoying it. And I know some of these are not typically high profile individuals. These are more normally your business owners. You can tell they're not really passionate about it anymore, but they've built enough of a reputation where it's more convenient for them to keep doing what they're doing because it pays the bills, because it's now part of their identity. And so they feel trapped. I know these people, and if you've been in the dog training industry long enough and you know enough dog trainers, I know you know them as well. Be aware, and you'll see. Watch. I like to watch people. I find people fascinating. But if you pay attention, you'll see. You'll become aware of that. Some of these people are just doing it because it's now just their job. They have invested so much into it. They got the training building. They got the business. They got the steady client flow. They really don't enjoy it. And sometimes if they trust you enough as they talk to you, they'll flat out tell you they don't enjoy it anymore. But they're doing it because it's part of their identity. It's how they pay the bills. And they will love to just be able to have that magic wand and just wave that magic wand and go, I'm going to just pick up where I left off financially and just do something else. But the reason that they don't do that is because they don't have that magic wand. So they are unable to just go, all right, well, I'm just going to jump over to this industry, to this profession, because if they do that, they got to start from zero. And when you go from making, over $100,000 training dogs, I'm making that as a general, right? A lot of dog trainers, if they've been doing it for a few years, they're easily making over $100,000. So it's hard to be making over $100,000 to going, I just don't want to do this anymore. I'm gonna do something else. Well, when you do that something else, you're not gonna pick up at $100,000. You're not gonna pick up where you left off normally. Typically, that's not the experience. You're probably gonna start from the beginning. You're gonna start as a student, and then you're gonna work your way up again. So there are people that are like that. These are the people that are trapped, and I know some of them. And when I see somebody who gets out of the trap and they're like, I'm really not doing this anymore, right? Like, I'm done with it. I'm just not doing it. They make that decision where they go, no, I'm not doing it. Right? I'm gonna do something else. Some people will look at that and go, oh man, they're just quitters. And maybe from a different perspective, I can see that. But from a another perspective, I look at that and I go, man, that takes courage. It takes courage to just go, I'm freaking not doing this. I'm done with it. Because they had the courage to just get out of that trap. They had the courage to go, I am going to take that pay cut. This doesn't represent me anymore. This is just not what I want to do anymore. And so they get out of the trap. And to me, that's actually it's kind of impressive, because you're getting way out of your comfort zone. Now you could easily make money, steady money training the dogs. You got the client, the steady client flow. You got your list. You got all the pieces together. You got the gears running. And then when you go, this really just does not make me happy anymore. Instead of being trapped, and they go, I'm gonna just do something else. You have to realize that takes courage, right? Because they didn't stay trapped. They didn't switch gears where they go, I guess just I'll slowly fade away into oblivion, and I'll just kind of keep it there in the back burner. They didn't do that. They just went, I am not doing this. It truly doesn't make me happy. I'm going to do something else. That you have to at least look at that, and to an extent you have to admire that and go, they made a drastic decision that was uncomfortable to make, and they did it. So very impressive. And I just talked to one of my buddies that is going through some of these stages. Hoping to talk to him in a podcast and just get his thoughts on the process, and we'll do that episode hopefully in sometime in the near future. But that's what I wanted to talk about today. And let me know, where are you? Okay, if you're listening, you're a dog trainer. Where are you in this process? Are you towards the beginning? Have you turned it into your responsibility like me? Like, this is now a mission to me. Like, I have to do this this is my duty. Have you done that? Are you trapped? Have you switched gears? Where are you in this, and what are your thoughts on this? I'd love to hear what you got to say on the topic.